in the Photoshop workspace, you'll want to first open a photograph by going up to the File menu, going down to Open, and selecting your file from wherever it is located on your computer's hard drive. So I'm just going to open this garden image here. You'll notice the workspace is very similar to Photopea if you're familiar with that. In the center, this is our canvas, our printable area where your photo is displayed. You can zoom in or out with your mouse pad. On the left, we have your toolbar. You'll notice it has a lot of the same tools as Photopea, but much more expanded. Along the top, we can toggle between different tabs, different documents that we might have open. Above that is the options bar, and these change depending on which tool you have selected. So if you don't remember exactly how to do a certain function with one of the tools, check up here on the options bar. They have really good hints for how to use those tools. Up here at the top, we have the menu bar with things like the file menu, where you would go to save as. Whenever you're saving a final document, you want to make sure to save it as a JPEG. If it's not already a JPEG, say it says Photoshop instead, you want to hit save a copy and change that format to JPEG. I would keep these photos on your desktop so they're easy to find. Title them something that you will remember, and then click save. So that's how to save in order to turn in a file to the Google Classroom. Another important menu might be the edit menu. You can go edit fill. You can choose edit free transform here if I were to have a selection. And then image, the image menu allows you to change the image size. The select menu is important to, inverse a selection or transform a selection can be helpful. The filter menu we'll look at today. And then the window menu allows you to reopen any of these panels over here to the right that may get closed out of. So on the right-hand side, these panels are very important for doing some special effects within your workspace. I like to always have the layers panel open. This is how I stay organized within my document. I always like to start by making a copy of the background layer. So there's 2 or 3 ways to do anything in Photoshop. You either, for this one, click and drag to this little plus sign down here to create a copy of that layer, or you can go up to these 3 little dots or 3 little bars, duplicate a layer, or you can always just right click on the layer itself to choose duplicate. So again, 2 or 3 ways to do anything in Photoshop in case you forget. So now I always like to work on this background copy. You can rename it so you can stay organized, and this is just as a backup in case something got really messed up. You could always delete it and start again from your other background. I like to also have my adjustment layers open whenever I'm starting a document, and then color usually opens by default. If you don't see the workspace displaying in this way, you can go up to the window menu and go down to workspace and switch it back to photography. So then you'll see this more familiar view. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. What I usually will start with is allowing Photoshop to tell me what it thinks the photo should look like. Say you open an image, you're not quite sure exactly what to do. You can use Photoshop as a guide. So the first thing you might want to start with when you're approaching a new photograph is adding an adjustment layer. Most of the time, photographers are not trying to do super surreal, huge alterations of multi-layered documents with super complicated adjustments and everything. Usually it's as simple as maybe your photo needs contrast. Our eyes work better than our cameras in capturing contrast, so in order to make the scene look the way you saw it with your eyes, you might need to add a little bit of contrast. So that would be right here with the brightness contrast adjustment layer. So you can drag those sliders, to give it a certain look. Or if you want to start with levels, this is another great way to start. If you don't know what to do with a file, just start with levels, and this will display, your dark values. You can kind of see almost in this little histogram here how many darks you have versus lights. Here's your highlights, here's the midtones. But what I really think is cool about this adjustment layer panel is that you can click the auto button, and that's basically giving Photoshop a chance to tell you what it thinks the photo should look like. How many dark should it have, lights, how do we balance the values in this photograph. So that can be really helpful. Another approach to starting your document, so say we didn't do that. Drag those to the trash. Okay, so I'm on my background copy. I don't quite know what to do with Photoshop, but I know that the photo could look better. I'm going to go up to the filter menu and go down to Camera Raw. Now, make sure you don't use this Camera Raw shortcut up here, because it gives you a shortcut to whatever your last settings were in Camera Raw, which may not be correct for this particular photo. Obviously, your last photo needed different edits. So don't be distracted by this shortcut up here. You have to go to the actual Camera Raw filter down here in the middle of the filter menu. So we open the Camera Raw filter, and you'll notice that there are a variety of different menus over here to the left. What I really like about the Camera Raw filter is that it has everything all in one place, kind of like editing on your phone, where you would just kind of scroll through and adjust the brightness, adjust the temperature, adjust the sharpness. You can do everything all in one space, versus Photoshop can be very intimidating if you don't know what you're doing, because it has so many options in so many different places, a lot of hidden options. So this Camera Raw filter kind of simplifies that process and allows you to see everything all at once. But again, what I like to really start with before I start messing with anything, before I start under basic menu, you'll notice that each of these menus has some expandable properties here. Before I start really messing around, I might go up here to this auto button. So notice the Camera Raw filter has an auto button too. And that's just to make some very quick adjustments based on what the AI in Photoshop feels is the best balance of values for your photo. So you click auto, it'll fix it right off the bat, boom, it kind of gives you a starting point. Then from there, you might go in and adjust little things like the temperature or the exposure, or something cool you can do in Camera Raw is just affect the highlight details, or just affect the shadows. Add a little bit of contrast. Most photos need some contrast. Clarity, you can turn up the sharpness on your image. Maybe adjust the saturation, make it look like a old-timey photo or super saturated. Usually it's somewhere in the middle. Curves can be really helpful. Whoa, that's crazy. So there's all kinds of things you can do. Maybe like some color curves. That looks very vintage. The color mixer is helpful. In fact, I'm going to take off that curve so that we can really see the color mixer. Under the color mixer, we could take out, say, just the reds. So notice how it's only affecting the red values. Maybe just the oranges. No orange, lots of orange. The greens, you can play around with making the greens grayscale, and then or adding more and more saturation to the green. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do. Under optics, you can add a vignette, which tends to darken the edges and draw the viewer's eye in towards the center. So just kind of a basic overview of some of the functions that you can access in the Camera Raw filter, just to get started if you don't know what else to do to your photo, and then you click OK. Now notice this is a permanent change that I've just made to that garden layer. So, but worry not, we have the background right here. You can see before, after. Whether it's better or not is kind of up to you. You be the judge of your own photograph. You're the artist to determine what you want that final look to be after some of your edits in Photoshop. So that would be a great way to start on a document in Adobe Photoshop.